Hi, I'm Darcie Crowe. Thank you for joining us today. And today we're going to be discussing a topic that's really prevalent in our conversations with clients, which is, should I be helping my adult children buy a home? So home ownership is becoming increasingly unattainable for children today, buying their first home. So it's a discussion that we're having in terms of when parents look at when they bought their first home many years ago, it was a much more attainable thing for them to be able to purchase to support their families. And now they're seeing their children struggle to be able to attain that for themselves. So they're looking at, can I afford and is it smart for me to help my children buy their home? So what we want to talk about is what those discussions look like when we're having clients and how we can help advise our clients in terms of understanding and deciding on what's the best way to proceed here based on their unique circumstances. So when people are talking about, making gifts to their children or loans to their children, often what they're looking at is a living inheritance. So it's a way for parents to be able to give to their children perhaps what traditionally was done through wills and through estate planning, but doing it as a living gift instead so that they're able to see the benefits that their children have from perhaps, a gift of a home or a gift of a down payment that perhaps they wouldn't other be able to see if they were gifting it after death. So what we want to look at today is what are some of the key considerations that you want to think about if you're talking about making one of these gifts to your children. So first of all is financial security, and this is always of number one importance when we're talking to our clients about whether or not it makes sense for them to gift to their children. So do you have financial security for retirement, and would a gift by in any way put at risk your financial security in retirement? So in order to have those discussions, it's imperative that you speak to your financial advisor and you have in place a financial plan that is going to map out for you. What is the cost of living going to be over the next 20, 30, 40 years? What is the assumed inflation? What are your assumed rates of return? What assets do you have? What incomes do you have throughout retirement? And how does that look over the years? Can you afford to give to your children? And we want to take into account things like healthcare costs and potential retirement resident costs. So there's a lot of things that we want to talk about for later in life planning to ensure that by gifting to your children today, you're not going to put that financial security in jeopardy in the future. Another thing that we want to talk about is how do we structure this gift? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing that have different financial and tax implications. So we might work with you in speaking with your tax advisor or your accountant in terms of what is the best and most effective way for you to make that gift. So for one, in certain circumstances, it's just an outright gift, or the parents might buy a home and the children live in it and it's in the parents' names. Perhaps the child pays rent to the parent as well. But that's one situation to go about it. Another way, it might just be in terms of providing the down payment and the child then has a mortgage that they pay themselves. Another example is co-ownership, where maybe the parent and the child both contribute to the home and are joint on title, and perhaps if the home is sold, the parents might get back funding. Or there's also where it might just be a loan structure where the repayment terms in place between the parent and the child. So again, there's many different ways that you can look at this, and there's different benefits and disadvantages to each of these different structures that you want to think about in terms of your unique situation. What is the best, most effective manner for you to proceed? One thing to think about that we often talk about with clients is if there is an outright gift made to the children and they are in a relationship where they might perhaps live with their partner or they get married, what happens if there is a subsequent divorce or split within that partnership? And is that gift then part of the matrimonial home and subject to division? So this is something that we certainly want to plan for in advance of the gift, and we want to talk to perhaps including a legal expert as well in terms of how do you want to structure this gift to ensure that it's protected. So next we want to talk about is, does it make sense to borrow in terms of helping your children purchase a home or for a down payment in a home? And again, there's always going to be unique circumstances, but in general, we like to really discourage investors and clients from borrowing, against their own assets, perhaps their principal residence, or perhaps depleting their own non-registered investment accounts to provide a gift to that children. In general, if you're put in a situation where you're going to be borrowing, unless it's under very unique circumstances, you're very likely potentially putting yourself at risk in terms of your retirement needs and objectives. So something that we would really want to have a conversation about with clients if you are going to be looking to borrow in order to fund that gift. So another thing that we really like to talk to clients about is how do you treat your children equally? In some cases, they want to be treated equally. In other cases, they don't. There's always going to be unique family dynamics in place. For example, one child might be living in another country, and it doesn't make sense from a tax perspective or their family dynamics in terms of purchasing a home for that child. So how do you go about in terms of making sure that the intentions of the parents in terms of treatment of their children can be done in a manner that is exactly in how they intended? So that might be helped through, our wealth and estate planning team, in terms of some will planning, estate planning. So those are important discussions to have, because the last thing that we want to see happen is that through a gift to one child, there's unintended consequences in terms of how that impacts other family members as well. And lastly, obviously, it's a very important topic that we're also going to talk to clients about is, does it make sense right now to be adding to real estate within our overall asset class portfolio? So for example, for certain clients that might have a principal residence and a vacation home, does it make sense that they then, invest in another 2 homes for their children, for example? Are they then overweighting themselves to real estate? And does that put their overall asset allocation, at a higher risk? So again, that's something we want to talk about with clients in terms of their overall asset allocation by making these gifts. And secondly, in terms of the timing, is there certain times that maybe make sense to be adding to that? Is there a great market opportunity, or is it a time when we're a little bit concerned about what the forward-looking housing market looks and think that it might be more beneficial to be holding off or waiting on some of those investment opportunities? Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion today. Again, there's financial, there's tax implications, and there's very much emotional implications in terms of family dynamics as well. So this is a decision that you really want to think through, you want to speak to your advisor about, and you want to make sure that you structure it in the most effective way possible for your family. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having this discussion with you.